All right, good morning, gentlemen. Today is Daf Kuf Zayin Maseches Pesachim. So we left off discussing about whether a person ate, whether he could still make Kiddush if he ate at night before he made Kiddush, or if a person ate in the evening, whether he can make Motzei Shabbos, whether he can make Havdalah. So we paskined, we had Hilchos that he could. Shaila was only whether, and if he missed it, when he could be Mavdil Holech, whether it's the entire week or just the next day, or we hold, the next 3 days. So we left off on Kuf Zayin, maybe, 10 lines from the top. Amrile. So Amrile, Maryanuka, Kuf Zayin, 107. So Amrile, Maryanuka, Markashisha, Bered Rav Chizda, Rav Ashi, they said to Rav Ashi, Zimna Chada, one time, Ikla, Ameimar, La'asran, V'loi Havilan, Chamra. So Ameimar was by us, and we didn't have any wine for Havdalah. So Aisnile, Shichra, so we brought him Shichra, we brought him beer made from dates. La'avdil, however, he did not want to go ahead and make Havdalah on date beer. So he did not ubastava. So then he went to sleep basically without eating, without making Havdalah, because he didn't have what to make Havdalah on, right? So we see over here that perhaps one, if he didn't make Havdalah, he shouldn't go ahead and eat. He was machrin himself, we said person could eat, because we said maybe you can bring food birchas hamazon, right, and then go ahead and make kiddush and use the same kos, but they didn't have any wine at all, so he didn't eat at all. So he was machmir lamachar. So the next time, so tachin of chamra. So next time they managed to go ahead and get. So the next day, then they got him wine, right? And then and then he went ahead the next day and he made Havdalah and he tasted it. So Lashana Su Iklo Asrin, the next year he came once again for his annual visit. Once again, we didn't have any wine. Asina Shichro, we brought him beer. And Omar Ihachi Chamar Medina, if this is the case, and I was last year, I remember this, they didn't have any wine. They brought me beer. I didn't make it last year, but now they bring me the date beer again. And this is Chamar Medina, right? This is basically the wine of this Medina. In other words, this is their chashav drink. And then therefore I can go ahead and make Havdalah on this. So we see over here, right? There's a concept of Chamar Medina for Havdalah. One can go ahead and make Havdalah on something which was basically the wine of their town. So Shmamina Tlas, we learn from here 3 different things. Shmamina Hamadu with Tfilah Kos. First of all, we learn if a person would make Havdalah, even though he says it in Tfilah, he still needs to go ahead and make Havdalah, ala Kos. Also, we see from here it's also for a person to go ahead and eat before he makes Havdalah. We also learn from here that whoever didn't go ahead and make Havdalah, he can go ahead and make it, after Saturday night into the week. Fine. So Boimine, Rav Huna, Rav Chizda. So that's the Shaila. So Rav Huna asked from Rav Chizda, Mahu lekedushe ashichra. What about making kiddush on sheikhar, right? What about making kiddush on beer? Samar hashta uma pirzuma v'tani v'asni deboimine mirav. When it comes to these different, beers made from barley, tene or figs, and v'asni, different types of berries, deboimine mirav, right? We asked from Rav, Rav mirabichia, Rabichia mirabi, v'loi pashale, and he didn't know, right? Whether you can go ahead and make kiddush on those items, on the barley and the figs and the different berries. So sheikhar boy, right? What about a sheikhar? Can it be, which is a lot less chashuv drink? So it sounds like they wouldn't be able to. So he said that maybe kiddush he couldn't go ahead and make on these type of beers, but he could go ahead and make Havdalah. And I'm Rav Chizda, and so Rav Chizda, Rav said, however, Rav held that just like you can't make kiddush on these types of beers, so too one cannot go ahead and make Havdalah on these beers. And Itmar Nami, Amar Rav Tachlifa Baravimi, Amar Shmuel, Kashem Shem Makdishin Alav, Kach Ein Mavdil Alav. Right, same way you can't make kiddush on it, so too you can't make Havdalah. Right. However, the halacha l'maisa we hold that one could make Havdalah on Chamar Medina, some sort of beer. However, when it comes to making kiddush on beer, one cannot go ahead and make kiddush on beer. And if you want to go ahead and make kiddush for the day, not at night, only during the day, let's say on schnapps, go ask your local Orthodox rabbi. Fine. So Levi Shadar Le Rebbe Shicha Bar Tleisar Magine. So Levi sent to Rebbe, right, beer that was basically crushed 13 times. It's very fine beer. And Tame Havi Basim Tuva, right? So he drank it, it was very good. So Amar going Zeru Lekavish Love. Something like this, so good, right? I guess they processed it 13 times. You should you should be able to go ahead and say all different types of praises on such a great meshubach, such a great cup of cup of beer. However, B'layla Tzare, the night he had a stomach ache, right? He was in the bathroom all night. Amar Miasir Mefayis, right? Can it be that something which is so damaging, right? Something which is caused such discomfort, the entire evening? Could this be something that one should make kiddush over? Certainly not. So therefore, he held that one should not go ahead and make upon this beer. And Omar Rav Yosef says, Rav Yosef, Adur the Rabbim de la Ishti Shicha. He says, I'm going to go ahead, and because of this, I'm going to go ahead and make a neder, right? In public, right? When a person makes a neder in public, it's much harder to go ahead and have your neder be nullified. So therefore, basically, I want to go ahead and prevent myself from drinking beer. So therefore, I'm going to go ahead and make some sort of neder in public, delicious shecha. And Omar Rava says, Rava Ishti me azaron v'lo Ishti shecha. Right? He says, I'd rather drink the water from that the flax soaks in, right, and not drink beer. Right, because it's that's the water that flax soaks in is pretty disgusting. And so too, I'd rather even drink that over beer. Gamarova tehavi shakusa shicha mandikavish shicha. Right. So he says no. That if the date beer is something that a person drinks every day, let him go ahead and be able to go ahead and make kiddush over. And Rav Ashkei, Rav Huna the Kaddish Hashich, and Rav found Rav Huna that he made kiddush on beer. And Amarle Shariaba Lamikne Istari Mishicha. It must be that I guess he drinks it all the time. He makes he does business with it, and therefore basically it's very chashuv to him. Therefore, maybe for him it's befitting for him to go ahead and make kiddush from it. And Tanur Rabbanan ein mekadishin ela ala yayin, ve'im varchin ala yayin. Right? You only make kiddush. You can only use wine. And we only make bracha rishona on wine. So where I ask, Atush Ashich of Amaya Milo Varchina La Shakol Nebro. What do you mean? You only make a bracha rishona on wine. You don't make a bracha rishona on water. You don't make a bracha rishona on beer. So Rabbi Yahaki come this means to say, Ein Omim Have Kos Shal Bracha Levarich El Yain. Right? We only do Kos Shal Bracha when one says Berchas Hamazon when he benches. So then that should not be said on beer or on water or on anything else, but rather only on wine. And Tan Rabbanan a mekadshin ala sheichar, so you can't make kiddush on beer. And Mishum Rabbi Elazar bar Rabbi Shimon Amru, they said in his name, mekadshin, no, you can. And metayemes kolshu, metayemes yayin kolshu, and that when you taste it, you should go ahead and only need to taste a little bit of anything, right? A little sip, and that's good enough. However, Rabbi Yossi bar Yudoimer Melo Lugma, right? No, that which you go ahead, you're required to go ahead and drink from a kol shel bracha, it should be a Melo Lugma, which is a cheekful. And Amarav Huna Amarav V'chein Tani Rav Gidel Deminaresh. So it was taught in the name of Rav Huna Amarav, and so too Rav Gidel from Naresh and Hamakadesh V'tamalo Lugma Yatza V'imlav Lo Yatza. Person goes ahead and he makes kiddush and then he drinks a lugma, a mouthful, a cheekful. Then right one side right is full. Then he's yaitse, but he did not drink that amount, then he's not yaitse kiddush. Right, person has to go ahead and drink at least lugma. Right, that's for all. We have that for all cases, except for when it comes to Pesach. Right, we have a person should drink rov kos. That is Pesach, but all other times that one drinks, right, Havdalah, Kiddush, it should be Malo Lugma. And Omar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, Ona Tanina Lai Lo Gidel bar Menashe, Velo Gidel bar Menyume, Ela Gidel Stama, right? It wasn't Gidel from Naresh, bar Menashe, and it also wasn't Gidel bar Menyume. Rather, it was only Gidel. That was the name of the Chacham, of the Tanam. And lamai nafkamina. So what's lamafkamina? Whether it's which Rav Gidol it was. So it says lamei adidei adidei. No, it's basically to ask the kasha if you want to find a stira. So therefore, it had to be a stira in the same person. Fine, 2 dots. Now, this is actually the first quote now from our Mishnah, which we began Arvei Psachim, which I think was Tzadi Tes, or Tzadi Tes, I think was the Mishnah. Let's see, I think, yeah, Tzadi Tes and Aleph. So we discussed over there, right? If you turning back, we said Arvei Psachim Samuch LeMincha, right? So we said Arvei Psachim Samuch LeMincha on Erev Pesach, close to Mincha. One should not go ahead and eat, but it doesn't identify which type of minchas, or not which type. We always have mincha, but there's a zman of mincha gedola and mincha ketana. So mincha gedola means, right, gadol is large. It means you have the large amount of time, which is on a perfect day, 6 a.m. sunrise to 6 p.m. sunset, right? So that would be at 12:30, right? Half hour after chatzos, right? In the shalos manios, that is the mincha gedola. Mincha ketana is in 9.5 hours, which would be at 3:30. So it's either so that's to do with mincha. So iboilu, a question was asked 2 lines from the bottom, and kuf zayin amud aleph, samach lemincha gedola tanan or samach lemincha katana tanan. Are we referring to samach lemincha gedola? In other words, a person samach lemin. We said samach. We defined it as a half hour before. So are we talking about 12 o'clock noon? One should not eat. Or are we talking about samach lemincha katana, which would be basically half hour before 3:30, which would be 3 o'clock? So So are we talking about before mincha gedola? In other words, at 12 o'clock, you shouldn't go ahead and partake of any meals. Why? Because the Korban Pesach, a person has to go ahead and perform that afternoon. He has to bring his Korban Pesach, and therefore we're worried that if a person goes ahead and starts eating his meal, he's going to neglect to bring his Korban Pesach. All right, Dilmasi lemimshach ve'asi. Turn the page. V'asi lemnune mila avi piska. Right? Perhaps he's going to go ahead and become, involved in his meal and not to bring his Korban Pesach. Or maybe samach lemincha katana. Maybe we mean that a person should not go ahead and have a meal samach lemincha before mincha katana. Mishum matzah, and because of matzah, dilma asi lemichle lematzah achila gasa, because he might come achila gasa. Now achila gasa is not, people say, achila gasa is, you eat like an animal, right? You eat a lot. That's not achila gasa. Achila gasa halachically is really referring to a person who's full and he's still eating. He has to eat. So if a person is already full and then he's eating, it's like a forced eating. It's a disgusting eating. So therefore, if that person has a meal so late in the day, we're worried that perhaps when he comes to eat the matzah, he's not going to enjoy the taste of the matzah and is going to be like basically force feeding himself. So are we talking about, is it mincha gedola or is it mincha ketana? So Amar Avina, 3 lines from the top. Toshma, come and listen. Afilu Agrippus hamelach shu ragil echel b'teisha shows. Even Agrippus, who used to go ahead and eat his first meal of the day at the 9th hour. The 9th hour was 2 o'clock, right? I guess he was the first one who did intermittent fasting, right? His first meal was at the 9th hour of the day, which is 2 o'clock, right? That was his eating window, right? Those who intermittent fasting, right? So he began eating. Even such a person, right? Like Agrippus was chashuv melech, right? He shouldn't go ahead and eat the entire day. No, he shouldn't eat since he normally partakes of his meal at 2 o'clock, right? And normally meals are an hour from 2 to 3. He shouldn't go ahead and eat. So Iyamar to be Shlomo Sarach Lemincha Katana Tanan Haina Rabusa de Agrippus, right? Now that's the chiddush of Agrippus. If you're telling me at 3 o'clock you're not allowed to go ahead and start your meal, B'jus Samach Lemincha Katana, so therefore it's a chiddush that if a person normally has his meal at 2 o'clock, right? He shouldn't even start at 2 o'clock because it's perhaps going to continue into 3 o'clock, and therefore is going to be problematic. Eliyamar to Samach Lemincha Gedola Tanan, my Rabusi de Agrippus, right? Chaliser ala meikara. But if you're not supposed to go ahead and eat Samach Lemincha Gedola, which will be at 12 o'clock noon, so what's the chiddush of telling me even someone who eats like Agrippus, Hamelech, shouldn't go ahead and start his meal? Of course not, right? That's 2 o'clock. That's 2 hours after the Zman Heter. So, of course, if we're bringing this to teach us by Agrippus, then then it makes sense if the chiddush is that even by mincha, if it's mincha ketana, but mincha gedola, why do you have to bring the example of Agrippus HaMelech? So Ella samach lemincha ketana tanan. Rather, it must be samach lemincha ketana. And so if my Rabusa de Agrippus, if that's the case, so if we're talking about mincha ketana, so why Agrippus? Samati leizman isura, right? In other words, so if we're talking about mincha katana, so what's the chiddush of teaching a grippus? It already is man iser. So right, so when it says no, Moju said Tesha shows la grippus ka'arba shows didon dummy. Maybe you say that since a grippus eats every day so late, so maybe such a person. Maybe to him, that's his first meal, and maybe a person's allowed to go ahead and eat his first meal when he normally does, and therefore, even though right, it goes right up into the zman of the yisr, so nevertheless, that's okay, right? But and so therefore, it would be like us. So there, kamash malon, that no, nevertheless, we person that even somebody who eats right before that zman shouldn't go ahead and partake of a large meal right before at 2 o'clock. Or excuse me, even at 2 o'clock, because the Zman Isser is at 3 o'clock. So even such a person, Kamash Malon, that you can't. Fine. And Omar Rabbi Asi, Aval Matvil Hu Bemine Targima. All right, a person is allowed to go ahead and dip in the afternoon as long as he's not Kovea Suda. He's allowed to go ahead and have dips. Different types of treats, whether it's like, side dishes, whatever it is, he's allowed to go ahead and eat that Erev Pesach. And Rabbi Yitzchak Matvil Biyarki, he used to go ahead and dip his vegetables on Erev Pesach, I guess to weten his palate. And Tanya Abhachisim learned Hashamash Matvil, the B'nei Me'ayin, the Naisin Lifnei Orchin. He used to go ahead and dip different types of meat, right? Kishka, whatever types of intestinal meat, I don't know, cold cuts, that's like the minhag now, right? You have your cold cuts on Erev Pesach, right? And for different dips. And he used to give it to his guests. And even though there's no proof, right? There's no farish pasuk that says, right, you should do this. Rather, there's a hint. Shenamar, as the pasuk says, Niro lachem nir, v'al tizor l'kaitzim. It says, right, go plow for yourself, a plowing, and don't go ahead and basically you should plow first before you sow. And don't go ahead and plant on thorns, i.e., in other words, if you're going to go ahead and have all this matzah, you should basically sort of prepare your stomach. How do you prepare your stomach? You open it up a little bit by having, eating different types of appetizers or whatever, throughout the day, in order that his stomach will be ready to go. And Rava Havishasi Chamra Kulim Ala Yomid Pischa. He used to go ahead and drink wine on Erev Pesach, Kihechi, the Nagre Libe, in order that basically that he would be hungry, he would whet his appetite, he would be hungry, right? Person's ever drunk, you eat a lot, right? So he would sort of get himself, his stomach prepared by drinking a lot of wine on Erev Pesach, the Nachal Matzah Tzvei L'Orsa, because then he would be able to go ahead and eat matzah better on that evening. And Amar Rava, Mena Amina Le Dechamra Migar Gar. And where do we see that the wine does help one eat more, right? The Tanan, we learn in the Mishnah, says, Bein Kaisis Halalu, Imratza Lishta Yishta, right? Between these cups, right? Between the Kaisas, the Dalit Kaisas, right? Between either the first and second or the second and third cups, one could go ahead and drink in the meal, right? Imratza Lishta Yishta. And however, Ben Shlishi Lervi Lo Yishta. But however, between the third and fourth cup, one should not go ahead and eat, and we'll get to this later. So lo yishta, why? Via Marta Masit. And if you say that basically by when a person goes ahead and drinks wine, it makes them full, amai yishta, haka achil lamatzeh achila gasa, right? If you're allowed to go ahead and drink additional cups between the first and second or the second and third, right? Prior to him having to go ahead and eat his matzah and his afikoman. So then if it's to make him full, then why would we allow him to go ahead and drink more wine? It must be that wine does not make you full. Wine sort of, makes you hungrier and whets your appetite. And Rav Sheshes Haviyasvi Batanisa Kol Maliyam at the Pesach. And finally, so Rav Sheshes used to go ahead and he would fast all Erev Pesach in order that he'd be able to, I guess, to go ahead and be able to drink or to eat his matzah better throughout the day. All right, I guess we'll stop here, even though the Gemara keeps going on. So tomorrow, Mitzvah Shem, we will continue from here at the same time. Everyone, enjoy your day. Enjoy the nice, sunny, warm weather. And tomorrow, Mitzvah Shem, we will continue here at 7:15. Shkoyach.